It's only so often that something really attracts the interest of the entire guitar playing community. Something that increases the value and the versatility of gear you already own, while also streamlining workflow and allowing more decisions to be made quicker and easier, would be great in its own right. But allowing the ever-increasing home studio musician to get $1 million studio quality recording with several famous guitar cabinets without waking the neighbors with our 120 decibel recording volume, the Universal Audio aux is the best thing I've ever purchased for my guitar. Hey, what's up? It's Danny McLaughlin and welcome back to the YouTube channel. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. I'm seeing the aux show up more and more in live rigs and rehearsal spaces and people's home studios, especially as of late with all of us at home. It always makes me so happy to see because I love my aux and I consider it one of the best investments I ever made for my guitar playing career. First of all, it's one of the best attenuators on the market. It's robust and simple. It can also take almost any amp you throw at it because its power limit is somewhere around 150 watts, which is a really good thing because sometimes a 100 watt amp on 10 is often putting way more than 100 watts. I've used Marshalls with this thing, orange amps, 2 Rocks, vintage amps, boutique amps, and it hasn't had an issue. Like, not even like a slight hint of a problem outside of just needing to adjust the output volume so that it doesn't clip my interface. On top of that, the amp cabinet simulators are second to none. I'm kind of avoiding the word impulse response because apparently there's some interesting innovation and engineering that goes into making the speaker emulations more dynamic and responsive. They're definitely some of the best I've ever heard though, and I've never really felt the desire to load in my own impulse responses to get a better sound. At NAMM last year, I heard David Ryan Harris say he uses this to get a great in-ear mix that is consistent night after night, rather than relying on a similar cabinet and mic setup. I've also seen Bob Weir using an aux at a Dead & Company show, and he was actually getting a decent tone for once. But to see something like this getting that kind of heavy road use, and just getting that level of trust, it must be something pretty good. I will say I wish the user interface was a little bit more accessible, but it's not really something I deal with all that often. I was talking to a friend recently who said he had a problem with having to connect the aux over Wi-Fi every single time he wanted to use it, but in my opinion that's kind of missing the point. You have the 6 presets you craft for your own tone right here in the front of the unit. You dial in your cab, your mics, your compression or EQ if you want it, and you just leave it. I don't think I've changed things in the aux app in like 6 months. But speaking of mics though, the most underrated thing about the aux is the inclusion of room mics. The aux could have been like a close mic machine, but the room mics bring in a completely separate plane of dimension for at-home recording. I feel like I hear the amp sound a lot more like a in-the-room sound with room mics, and of course, they have the same amount of flexibility in the mic choice and the processing. If you watched last week's video, you'd see a comparison I did between a Kemper profile, the aux, some mics, and then the camera mic. The aux and the mics were pretty hard to discern the differences in, as they sounded so similar. It actually seemed to fool a few people. But speaking of the Kemper, I actually feel like the aux may be one of the better ways to generate amp profiles. If you don't know how the Kemper works, it sends an impulse out from one of its outputs, and then your job is to plug it into an amp, record it, and the Kemper sees that impulse and creates a profile. Some of my favorite profiles, the Carl Verheyen pack, were recorded at Sunset Sound in Hollywood. I wouldn't say you notice the benefits of like a great room and the gear at Sunset Sound, but I really noticed just the quality of the profile. Now here's where the aux comes in, because I mentioned the aux emulates the sound of an amp in a really, really nice room, which we're not really in right now, but the room tone of the aux really helps the sound come alive. Plus, just from a workflow standpoint, profiling is like a dream. Rhett Schull pointed out that there's actually no XLR jacks on the back, which yeah, is a bit surprising for versatility's sake. I actually used the SPDIF out to make use of some of the extra inputs on my interface, but people seem to be getting by on the 1/4-inch jacks too. I've kind of had some issues with some of the Wi-Fi connections too, but outside of the small inconveniences, this is literally the best thing I've ever gotten for recording guitar. As always, thanks for watching, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.